On a seemingly ordinary night, fate can become a nightmare. When Lucas, an Uber driver, encounters a mechanical failure on his journey down I-15, he has no idea that the help he is about to receive could turn into your biggest threat. Get ready for a journey that would challenge even the bravest of drivers. Welcome to the channel where every ride could be your last. Here, we tell the darkest and most disturbing stories of drivers and passengers who have faced the unexplainable on the roads. If you like feeling that chill down your spine, subscribe now, hit the bell so you don't miss any chilling stories, and share them with your brave friends. Get ready, because the next race could be yours. The Road of Despair. It was a quiet night in Las Vegas, and Lucas Thompson was driving his Uber through the city's bright streets, surrounded by the neon glow of casinos and the hustle and bustle of tourists. At just 28 years old, he was looking for a better future, juggling work at Uber and studying business administration. Life in Sin City had its perks, but also its pitfalls. After a few successful runs, Lucas felt excited. He was on the way to get a new ticket when, suddenly, his car's engine started to fail. The sound of a deep crack echoed inside the vehicle, and before he could react, the car came to an abrupt stop on I-15, a road that stretches for miles, deserted and gloomy. "Shit," Lucas muttered, looking at the dashboard, which was flashing in warning. He tried to restart the car, but there was no response. Desperation began to set in as night enveloped the road, and the only light that illuminated their path was the fight from the headlights. Desperate, Lucas took out his cell phone and started sending a tow truck request. As he waited, his mind raced, reflecting on how a simple mechanical failure could quickly turn into a nightmare. He looked around. The darkness around him was oppressive, and the wind was blowing gently, like a warning that something wasn't right. I-15 was almost deserted. All I could hear was the distant sound of a truck passing by. He remembered the stories they heard about the road, of drivers who had faced strange experiences but always thought they were just urban legends. Now, however, the feeling of vulnerability was palpable. After a few minutes that seemed like a modern day, a bright light appeared in the distance, accompanied by the sound of a powerful engine. A squeal, finally. Lucas felt a momentary tear, but the tension in his chest didn't disappear. The vehicle moved, and as it approached, he could make out the figure of the driver. Ethan Black was a robust man, with a friendly appearance that seemed to contradict the darkness that surrounded him. He climbed down from the tow truck, a smile that seemed more sinister than friendly if offered on his face. "Hi, I'm Ethan. I see you need help," he said, his voice deep and smooth. Lucas couldn't help but feel a wave of discomfort, but the disruption of being out of the broken car was enough to make him more relaxed. "Yes, my car chopped up. What can you do?" Lucas asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm going to tow your car to a safe place," Ethan replied, gesturing toward the tow truck. "But you'll need to go inside. It's not safe to stay here." Lucas hesitated, but the idea of being alone on the dark road scared him more than accepting help from a stranger. He nodded and got into the tow truck, feeling a shiver run down his spine as he settled into the seat. Sofia, a passenger he had picked up earlier, sat next to him, a 25-year-old with curly hair and curious eyes. "Everything is fine?" Sofia asked, noticing Lucas' worried expression. She was returning from an exhausting shift at a city hotel. "I guess so. Just worried about the car," Lucas replied, trying to smile but failing. "Don't worry. He'll definitely know what to do," Sofia said, trying to comfort him. Her presence was comforting, but Lucas still felt uneasy. The tow truck left, and as they drove, Ethan started asking strange questions. "What's your biggest fear?" he said. Suddenly, his gaze focused on the road. Lucas was surprised by the question. "Sorry, what? Did you hear, what's your biggest fear?" "I always say that fear is the true fuel of life," Ethan replied, a low, uncomfortable chuckle escaping his lips. Lucas exchanged a worried look with Sofia, who seemed as confused as he was. "Well, I would say, the unknown," Lucas replied, trying to feel at ease, but his voice betrayed his nervousness. "A common fear," Ethan said, with a slightly sarcastic tone. "You know, I have my fears too. People are really fascinating, aren't they?" The conversation continued, but the feeling of discomfort only increased. The road became increasingly isolated, with tall trees lining the sides. Shadows danced on the sides of the tow truck, and Lucas felt increasingly trapped. Ethan continued talking about his experiences, always in a friendly tone, but there was something about the stories that seemed disturbing. He has previous clients and, as always, knows how to deal with problems. Every laugh that came out of his mouth seemed to echo ominously inside the vehicle. "Have you ever heard about what happens to drivers who hitchhike in strange places?" Ethan asked, as he accelerated around a curve. Lucas felt even more uneasy. "What do you mean by that?" Lucas asked, trying to remain calm, but his voice betrayed his growing fear. "Ah, you know, some people disappear. They just some. It's always an interesting story, isn't it?" Ethan said, looking directly at Lucas, his eyes shining with a disturbing excitement. Sofia began to fidget next to Lucas. She looked out the window. The dark desert seemed to stretch endlessly, with no signs of life. The tension in the cabin was palpable, and Lucas couldn't shake the thought that they were heading somewhere dangerous. When Ethan finally made an abrupt turn, Lucas discovered that the tow truck was moving away from the main road, onto a dirt path that was lost in the darkness. He looked at Sofia, who had the expression of someone who had realized what was happening. "Ethan, this isn't the right way," Lucas tried to protest, his voice now firmer. "Trust me," Ethan replied, a crooked smile forming on his lips. "I know a shortcut." The tow truck continued to walk along the deserted road. The feeling of panic began to spread throughout Lucas' body. What started as a simple call for a tow truck turned into a nightmare scenario. "Hey, you shouldn't be driving onto the main road," Sofia interjected, her voice tremendous. "Why are we going to such an isolated place?" Ethan laughed again, but now the laugh sounded like a threat. Sometimes what appears to be a shortcut can turn out to be a surprising experience. Lucas and Sofia exchanged panicked looks. The tow truck was now surrounded by trees, and a feeling of claustrophobia began to set in. What should have been a simple help was turning into a game of life and death. "Let's stop, please," Lucas said, trying to keep his voice calm. "We want to go back to the city." Ethan, however, had other plans. He looked away from the road and focused on Lucas with a manic gleam in his eyes. "Ah, but the fun is just beginning." The tension intensified as the tow truck advanced toward an abandoned cabin that suddenly appeared among the trees. Lucas felt a shiver run down his spine when he saw the place. The cabin looked like something out of a horror movie, with broken windows and an ominous atmosphere. Ethan parked the tow truck in front of the cabin and turned to Lucas and Sofia, the smile on his face wider than ever. "Welcome to my home." Ethan's true nature was primed to be revealed, and Lucas and Sofia prepared for what could be the fight of their lives. The cabin stood among the trees like a monument to desolation. The smell of rotting wood and mold filled the air, and the dim moonlight illuminated the broken windows, creating shadows that danced on the worn walls. Lucas felt his heart accelerate as he left the tow truck, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "What are we doing here, Ethan?" Sofia said, her voice shaking. She was restless, looking at her surroundings as if waiting for something or someone to emerge from the darkness. Ethan got off the tow truck and began approaching the cabin, his permanent smile intact, but his eyes glowed with a predatory gleam. "Ah, just a quiet place to relax and have a more intimate conversation." Lucas felt a chill down his spine. "That doesn't feel right." "Can we get back on the road?" he insisted, his tone firm. "Don't worry, you'll love it here," Ethan said, almost as if he was trying to convince him. He left a flashlight on the winch and turned it on, sending a beam of light toward the cabin. "Come, it's better than staying out here." Lucas exchanged another nervous look with Sofia, who was still hesitating. "Lucas, I don't like this," she whispered. "Come on, we have no choice," Lucas replied, knowing that the only way to ensure their safety was to behave and not challenge Ethan. Walking through the cabin's creaky door, Lucas was immediately visible inside. It was dark, with only a few streams of light from Ethan's flashlight revealing a space that seemed to be frozen in time. Dust-covered furniture and threadbare blankets were scattered all over the place. The atmosphere was oppressive, and a feeling of unease set in. "This place is interesting," Lucas said, trying to find something positive in the situation, although his words sounded hollow. Ethan just smiled, pleased with the occurrence. "This is where things get really fun. Come, feel yourself. We have a lot to discuss." Lucas and Sofia hesitated, but finally sat down on an old sofa, which creaked under their weight. Lucas couldn't help but notice photos on the walls, black and white images of people he didn't recognize. There was something about the faces that made him uneasy. All shades have an empty glow in their eyes, as if they were no longer there. "So how did you guys meet?" Ethan said, his tone hinting at mischievous curiosity. "A traveling couple?" "Nothing like that," Lucas replied. "We only meet in the city." "Wonderful city, isn't it?" Ethan said, almost dreaming. "But full of secrets. Some of them are the best deserts discovered." The tension did not grow as the conversation continued. Lucas became increasingly aware that he was in a much worse situation than he had imagined. As Ethan continued to speak, Lucas discovered that he was collecting information like a predator analyzing its prey. "Have you ever been afraid of something?" Ethan asked, staring at Lucas. "Sometimes fear is the best part of life." Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan was having fun at their expense. "I don't like being stuck in strange places," he replied, trying to remain calm. "And this cabin seems a little too isolated." Ethan leaned forward, his gaze fixed on Lucas. "Ah, but you don't understand. Isolation is what makes everything more exciting. Without distractions, you can truly explore your fears." "That doesn't seem healthy," Sofia said, interrupting a conversation. "We should leave." Ethan let out a low, almost dismissive laugh. "You still don't understand, do you? No one will hear your screams here. The real fun begins when you are alone, with no one to help you." The mood in the hut changed instantly. The darkness seemed to deepen, and the atmosphere became increasingly suffocating. Lucas felt a wave of panic rising in his chest. "Ethan, please, we just want to get back on the road," he begged, his voice full of desperation. Ethan declared himself, his presence now more threatening. "You don't understand. I'm the only one who can decide what happens here." He moved away from the window, looking out as if he was waiting for something. Lucas and Sofia looked at each other. Their fear was now palpable. "What do you mean by that?" Lucas asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Ah, you'll find out soon enough," Ethan replied, a sinister smile lighting up his face. "But one thing is certain, tonight will not be like the others." Panic took over Lucas. "We need to get out of here now," he said, standing up abruptly. He looked at Sofia, who was just as scared as he was. Ethan spun quickly, his gaze sharp like a blade. "Do you really think you can leave?" He advanced, and Lucas realized the situation was about to turn deadly. "Sofia, let's go." Lucas restrains, pulling her towards the door. He didn't know where he was going, but he needed to get out of that cabin and get control of Ethan. The door creaked as Lucas and Sofia opened it, but what they saw outside paralyzed them. The darkness of the forest seemed thicker, as if it were alive, and there was a sense of dread around them. The only light came from Ethan's flashlight, which was now in his hands, lighting the way back. "You have nowhere to go." Ethan spoke, laughing as if he was amused by the situation. "The night is my friend, and the forest is full of secrets." Fear gripped Lucas, and he left Sofia to run in the opposite direction. They knew they were at a disadvantage, but the need to escape the impulsive. The forest was a maze of shadows and children, and Lucas could barely see where he was stepping. Hearing the sound of footsteps behind them, Lucas and Sofia ran with all their might. Lucas's heart was beating wildly, and he could feel the adrenaline invade his body. The darkness seemed to close in around him, but he refused to give up. "Sofia, keep running," he said, without looking back. They couldn't allow Ethan to catch up to them. Then, suddenly, Lucas heard a scream echo in the night. It was the most terrifying sound he had ever heard. He knew it was Sofia, and it made his heart stop. He paused for a moment, hesitating whether to continue or turn back. "Luke," she commented again, and the desperation in her voice was enough to make him move forward. He knew he would find her, but darkness surrounded him, and the obvious shadows moved. He finally turned and saw it, standing still in the middle of a clearing. Ethan stood before her, his gaze predatory. Lucas felt a surge of anger and fear, and all he could think about was protecting Sofia. "Get away from her," Lucas commented, advancing towards them. What was in the game was much more than just a night of terror, it was Sofia's life. Ethan slowly turned around, his smile still there, but now he looked more menacing. "Do you really think you can save a girl?" He moved away from Sofia, who was trapped in terror. "No, no. Go away." Lucas spoke, trying to catch up with Sofia, but Ethan was faster. He grabbed Sofia by the waist, pulling her closer to him. Desperation took over Lucas. He was launched toward Ethan in a desperate act of courage. But as he approached, he discovered that the situation was beyond his strength. What he didn't know was that Ethan had prepared this trap with meticulous care. However, in a moment of pure determination, Lucas threw himself at Ethan, and the fight began. Adrenaline pumped through his veins as he tried to get Ethan away from Sofia. The confrontation unfolded under the starry sky, and the fight for survival became more and more intense. The cabin, now just a distant memory, became a symbol of the terror they faced. Lucas and Sofia were in a deadly game, and the only way out seemed to be to defeat Ethan and escape his dark presence. Lucas knew this would be the fight of his life. His every breath seemed heavier as he lunged at Ethan, trying to pull him away from Sofia. The children of the fight echoed through the forest, mixed with the rustling of leaves and the cold wind that blew through the trees. The clash between Lucas and Ethan seemed endless as they both exchanged desperate blows. But Ethan, with his distorted smile, seemed to feed on the dog. "You think you can stop me, boy? Ethan, no one has ever escaped my game, and you won't be the first." Sofia, paralyzed by fear, was a few meters away, watching the scene with her heart beating wildly. She knew I needed to act, but the paralysis of terror prevented her from moving. Then, in a flash of determination, she felt her survival great. As Lucas recovered on the ground, struggling to find strength, Sofia spotted a thick piece of branch next to her. Without thinking twice, she picked him up and, with all her strength, hit Ethan in the head. The hollow sound of the impact echoed through the clearing, and Ethan's smile faded as he staggered back, surprised. "Lucas." "No." "Sofia." The pain in Lucas' body was intense, but Sofia's courage rekindled something inside him. He spoke quickly and ran towards her. Ethan, still stunned by the blow, was vulnerable, but Lucas knew that wouldn't last long. "We have to get out of here now," Lucas said, his voice. They ran without looking back, their breaths ragged with panic. Every shadow in the trees seemed to be Ethan, every noise in the forest seemed to follow them. But they didn't stop. Lucas knew that anything was. "He's going to follow us, Sofia, we need a plan." Lucas nodded. "We need to find the road back," Lucas whispers. "If we can get back, maybe we can call for help." "Sofia." "Let's continue," said Lucas. "Put." Suddenly, "He's coming," Sofia whispered. They turned around. "Do you think you can run away?" "Ethan Gr. This forest is mine. I know every tree, every curve. There is no escape. Look." As they ran, Lucas saw something ahead. A clearing. But this felt different. In the middle of it, something glowed faintly, and he clung to the hope that it might be a chance to escape. "Over there." Quickly. They broke into the clearing, only to discover that it was an old dirt road. It wasn't the main road, but it was something. Lucas looked to his right and saw that the road wound toward darkness, but there were fresh tire tracks on the ground. "That's a good sign," he thought. "We need to go this way, You're just prolonging the result," he said. "It always ends the same way." Lucas looked around, desperate. There were few options, and the dirt road seemed to go on forever, with no sign of rescue. "What are we going to do?" "Sofa." "We have to keep going," Lucas responds. While Ethan. "Sofia, run." "Look." "Sofia, Ethan, now just a few feet away, discovers Lucas's plan and broadcasts it. "Do you really want to play with me, boy?" Lucas didn't respond. The sound. You're going to pay for this." Ethan mutters. "Look." The sound. You're going to pay for this." Ethan mutters. "Look." They ran for what seemed like an endless amount of time, their lungs burning and their bodies exhausted. But then, finally, they saw lights ahead. A truck. "Help. Look." The truck stopped, and a man got out, looking at them with a confused expression. "What is happening, Please help us." "Sofia, there's a man, he's trying to kill us." The truck driver looked around but saw no one. "Get in the truck, quick," he said. While the truck lumbered down the desert road at speed, leaving the darkness of the forest behind. Lucas and Sofia were exhausted, sitting in the back seat, panting and sweaty. Lucas's body ached in every muscle, but he still held his head high, looking. The driver, a middle-aged man with a serious face, watched the two in the rearview mirror, trying to understand the urgency of the situation. "You guys look like you've been through hell," he said. "It's worse than you imagine," he replied. "There's a man back there, a psychopath. He tried to kill us. We need to get out of here as quickly as possible." The driver frowned and opened the steering wheel, pressing the accelerator even harder. "I'll take you to the nearest police station. It's the safest place for now. He won't stop. I know he's still hunting us," he said. Lucas looked at her, trying to convey confidence. "We'll be fine now, Sofia. We're out of his reach." But deep down, Lucas wasn't so sure. There was something about Ethan that was different. "We're almost there," said "You can wait here while I call the police." The truck. "Stay inside the convenience store." "I'm going to call the police now," said the driver. "Lou, are you guys okay?" he said. "Just tired," he replies. "We have to wait for the police. We were attacked." The gas station attendant nodded, but his eyes remained fixed on the two, as if trying to understand what was happening. "This place is kind of isolated, but there are always some crazy people around." Lucas let out a deep sigh. He finally felt like he could be saved. "He can't follow us here. It's impossible." "But, as if they were yours." "Lucas." She whispered, "He's here." "Lucas, if. How is it possible, Moore? He was too far away." Sofia pulled Lucas away by the arm, her breathing quickened. "We have to get out of here, Lucas. We can't stay. He's going to kill us." The gas station attendant, noticing the tension, took a step back. "Hey, who's that guy outside? He looks dangerous. Do you think you could escape me?" "Ethan, that's what makes the game more interesting." "Luke, where do you think you're going?" "Eta. No more games." Luca exaggerates. "Lucas, get up." Sofia screams. "Luke." They walked through the back door and out into a dark alley. The sound of Ethan's footsteps approached quickly, and Lucas knew time was running out. "We need a plan." Sofia looked around frantically, but the alley was narrow and dark. There was a tall fence on the other side, but it looked too high to jump over. "Lucas, he's going to get us. What do we do?" Before Lucas could respond, the back door was kicked down, and Ethan appeared, his face now distorted with rage. "You won't escape me." The only option was to fight. Lucas picked up a broken piece of wood from the ground and prepared to fight. Ethan moved forward, his movements quick and calculating, but Lucas was ready. He swung the piece of wood with all his might, hitting Ethan in the stomach. The impact caused Ethan to flinch momentarily, but he soon recovered, his eyes white. Sofia, seeing that Lucas was in danger, picked up a brick that fell in the alley and, with a scream of determination, threw it at Ethan. The brick fell on the side of his head. Silence took over the alley for a moment. Ethan's body lay motionless on the floor, and Lucas and Sofia stood there. "Is it finished, Sofia?" Lucas approached Ethan's body, making sure he wouldn't move anymore. After a moment of hesitation, he let out a sigh of rupture. "I think so." But even as they said this, they both knew they would never be truly safe. Ethan's mark would stay with them forever, and the terror of that night would never be forgotten. A few days later, Sofia was sitting at the police station, giving a statement. Lucas's face was in her mind, and she still felt the adrenaline rush. "You were the only survivor," he said. Sofia agreed, still processing everything that had happened. Yes, and I don't think I'll ever forget what I saw that night. The detective sighed, closing his notebook. Did you like this story? Do you have something incredible to share? If you or someone you know has had a hair-raising experience in traffic, whether as a driver or passenger, send your story. Who knows, it might appear in our next video. Send your report in the comments or by email, and let's explore the mysteries of the road together.